people are talking about taking that place and picking up the microphone. I get it. It's very touching. People need to know that there are still crosshairs on that microphone, and people need to take it seriously. So when people say that I'm being irresponsible, I am doing the most responsible thing I can think to do in trying to right maybe some errors, mistakes on my part. I told people it was dangerous. I didn't tell them the entire extent, and I hope people know and take it seriously. And the only thing that's going to curb it is for the left to be afraid to even think of it.
Since the assassination of Charlie Kirk, death threats have been skyrocketing across the board. On every social media platform, you are seeing lists of names be produced, and they are engaging in terroristic threats. It is borderline overt. I say borderline because it's what I call Tweedledee Tweedledum threats, where one person says, I think more conservatives should die. Someone then says, here's a list of the people that should die. And none of them is creating the imminent threat, but together it forms an imminent threat. So the question now is, how do we deal with this? And no, it's not just fringe far leftists. Take a look at this from the Post-Millennial. Local Democratic Party in Washington deletes post mocking assassination of Charlie Kirk. It is overt. It is obvious. It is happening across the board. It's affecting everybody. So to get a better sense of what's going on, we are being joined by the man himself, Steven Crowder, to give us an understanding of what his perspective is, what's been happening to him. I've obviously talked a lot about what we are going through here. Security assessments, increased security. It's getting crazy. How's it going, Steven Crowder? How you doing?
Well, I appreciate thanks for the intro. Here's the thing. I wouldn't even necessarily say that it's different. And that's what I think is so bothersome is we have lived under this cloud for very, very long.
Oh, yeah.
Anytime we show up, anytime, when I've talked about this and Charlie said it as an inspiration, he took it to a different level. Changed My Mind was an idea to challenge the left in 2016 on the idea of civil dialogue. Like we'll do it. It won't be cable news. It won't be edited. And it became increasingly violent. I've had, so to give you an idea, and the left always says, oh, you're fine. You're okay. I had a trans, and if this is on YouTube, I had a trans individual. You scream at me and then steal a homeless man's lunchbox pencil case, whip it at me from a blind spot. I've had someone try to bash me over the head with a rock. I've had attempts with concrete milkshakes, slashed tires, calls to firebomb the car, attempts on my life, actually, a terrorist. And I haven't talked about this until now. And you know this because the real threats, you don't want copycats.
Yep.
Terrorists from Yemen by way of Sweden, posting the address, my family's work address, the route to, so between the addresses. And my life is likely saved because a fan saw it posted on YouTube in a comment and cross-referenced the zip code with East Grand Rapids PD, and they showed up at my house. Whoa. This has been going on for a very long time. When I did Change My Mind at SMU, the man in charge of the police there asked my father, he said, why does he need this kind of security? Maya Angelou was here however many years ago. She didn't need it. And my dad turned to him and said, why do you think that is?
Yeah.
And you could see the lights turn on. I hope, and to be clear, because I know I've made some waves by advocating violence. I am. Not even political violence. I'm advocating for lawful violence, protection of you and your own, where grace has been afforded before. What I mean is, if you were in a restaurant, if you were at your school recital for your kids, and someone came up and was throwing a milkshake at you, or you don't know if it's strawberry, chocolate, vanilla, acid, or concrete, you'd beat their ass. We haven't because we've been taking the high road, and so it's been open season. We are being hunted. Charlie Kirk was hunted. Let's be very clear about that. And what you're seeing, Tim, you know this, and everyone behind this is afraid because I get it. No one wants to, you don't want to make it about yourself, but I know what you've been through. I know what you've been through, and I know that people are just seeing the one that got through. Yep. And when you block and you block and you block and you block all of these other assaults, all of these other attempts, people say, well, you're fine. You're a big guy, right? No, that stops now. I want the left. I want Destiny to be able to do his copycat Change My Mind thing with no security, as he has done. I hope that they can continue to speak freely with very little security for the rest of their lives. I want the left to be deathly afraid of showing up to ours and even thinking about being violently disruptive. I hope that I've been crystal clear, and if people have a problem with it, I will answer for anything I've said.
I hear what you're saying. What people don't understand is, it's like you said, only the one that gets through is what people hear about. I cannot begin to list out all of the instances we've had or the death threats that we get because it creates security issues. So we've had, I have had dealt with local police, criminal prosecutions, lawsuits. I have had people who have committed crimes against us threaten legal action, which threatens the lives of other people. I can't get into great details on this.
I know. I get it. But that's the problem, right? You can't. And so the left goes, oh, Tim Pool, little drama bitch, or whatever they say.
Yep.
And I didn't mean to be so rough on you. I'm trying to, I'm trying to steel man them. And drama bitch is probably about as good as they can do.
It's crazy how trying to keep this as vague as I can for obvious security reasons.
Yeah.
One threat that we had that manifested in physical action, when we tried to get it dealt with, the legal response threatened the life of a third party public personality. And so our lawyer was basically like, you can fight this and win, and then they will use that against you to target the third party.
Right.
Or you can choose to back off, stop the fight. They were effectively, it was like blackmail. And for security reasons, I can't even begin to describe what exactly was going on or how it would play out, because that would open the door and create the threats. It's insane. We had a man in a dress show up at our old location and physically attack one of the residents. We're not there anymore. We're not there. And
well, plus it's gross.
Yeah. But so apparently this guy shows up in a dress, and I'm not saying trans person. This is a clear distinction. It was literally just a man in a dress and was walking around on our old property filming. And I got informed by our security that this was occurring. The next day, one of the people who lived there, because again, we don't operate there anymore, was physically attacked by this man. And it became a huge issue. The locals are all really pissed off. Because I'm not, they were mad when I was there because of the threats, the swattings, the bomb threats. We had the bomb squad come several times. And now I'm gone and it's still happening because these people have still published our old address acting like it's real. If I list out all of the things that we had to deal with, one recent incident this past weekend, just days after Charlie Kirk's assassination, I think the unfortunate reality is we can't convey the true extent of how dangerous the left is, because it increases the danger to us. But as you've already pointed out, then people don't know just how serious it is.
Well, that's what, I mean, there have been a lot of mixed emotions. And I'm not talking about, now I've been really clear too, because I feel like there's a lot of clout chasing out there. People saying, me and Charlie Kirk were best friends. I've said, Charlie Kirk and I were not close friends. We were colleagues. I had respect for his testicular fortitude, as all of us did, and we were cordial. That's it. So I don't want to claim that I speak for him, and I don't want to claim that I know what his family thinks, because people will throw that back. A lot of other people are doing that. But I will say this, I guarantee you he was scared. He was brave. He wasn't fearless. He was brave. He knew, and I was angry at first because I watched it, and I go, like, we stopped Change My Mind a while ago because of the security risk, right? And I'm going, no, you don't announce it beforehand. I go like, the speaker, the balconies, like, these are part of a protocol that we had. And then it came to, look, I mean, why didn't I pick up a phone? I'd been through that. And the truth is, I did this initially, and I know about all the security threats. And like you said, because I didn't want copycats, I would tell people I had some close calls. Yeah. And I see kids going out there, and I get it. And the alternative is silence, and we cannot be terrorized into silence. But I want people to know, and I should have been clearer about it, that out there is the real world. And in the real world, there are psychos. And if I would have told people the violence then that they faced, that the left wants you dead, they will take your life. And if they are unsuccessful, they will take your name. Maybe we could have had a different outcome. I don't know, but I do know this. If someone is going to try, and people are talking about taking that place and picking up the microphone, I get it. It's very touching. People need to know that there are still crosshairs on that microphone, and people need to take it seriously. So when people say that I'm being irresponsible, I am doing the most responsible thing I can think to do in trying to right maybe some errors, mistakes on my part. I told people it was dangerous. I didn't tell them the entire extent. And I hope people know and take it seriously. And the only thing that's going to curb it is for the left to be afraid to even think of it. We've afforded them grace where they do not deserve it. And I make no apology for this. I'm not calling for a civil war. I'm not calling for people to go out and violently disrupt the left in any way. And here's the thing. No one is afraid of that. Do you know how I know? Because they desecrate the memorials and spit at the vigils right now. They still do it with no fear. Impunity. No fear, complete impunity. And that has to stop. And the big difference, I've said this, between 2008 me on YouTube, 2012 me, 2015 me, Charlie Kirk and me, is this team of people, we've said our mind, we'll hurt you. We will, and that has to happen. And I hope I see more guys out there willing to protect, not be violent offensively, protect our own, because we haven't.
lawful self-defense. And this is a good point you bring up, because there's a viral video, I commented on it, where it showed all these instances where people on the right had gone to rallies and got attacked, and they never defend themselves. It was very rare. There was like Based Stickman back in, 2018 or whatever. The one time a right-winger, after the left came and attacked a peaceful rally, they defended themselves. So I agree. And look at this. It is still you and I talking about the restraint we need to have, how we don't want an escalation of violence, but we have to be prepared when they engage in violence against us for legal, lawful self-defense to stop that from happening. But I want to say something. You just said there are psychos out there, and here's where it's truly scary. I've long said, maybe even 6 months ago, I'm not scared of Antifa. I don't fear leftists. They make these threats online. We take them seriously, but I'm more worried about the lunatic who thinks I stole all of his spoons and have hid them in my basement. Because some of the most egregious...
You don't have entirely clean hands on that one. We know that you collect spoons, Tim.
No, well, it's Seamus Coughlin, but that's a whole other story. But
throwing us off the scent.
So I've had psychopaths. A lot of the most serious threats that we get, that we forward to the FBI and things like that, are just lunatics saying things that make no sense but are serious threats. This changes now. And while I always consider the left to be a very serious threat, and we have security because of the left, Charlie Kirk didn't even believe that this was possible. If Charlie Kirk thought by stepping out into that tent he would take a bullet, he wouldn't have done it. We thought security was good enough, it's not going to happen, and it did. And I'll tell you where the real fear comes now. I have friends on Facebook that I have known for decades, since I was a child. I have gone to holiday dinners with them.
Let me guess. Hold on. Before you tell me this, okay? Because I just had this conversation 3 times this week. All right? Let's see if I'm clairvoyant. Let me guess. Shocked at the gleeful celebration or condoning of the assassination, and you're no longer friends. Am I close?
You are. You hit the nail on the head. I have seen posts that have argued Trump killed Charlie Kirk to justify an expansion of the security state, from people I know who know that Charlie and I were friends. And I heard what you said about you're not close friends. I would also like to make sure I clarify this too. It's a weird thing, right? I knew Charlie. I had his phone number. We texted. We didn't go out for beers or go golfing or anything, but I didn't consider him just to be a work colleague because of the support that he had offered me. I considered it to be a friend and there are many people that I don't hang out with I consider to be friends. But I don't want people to think that we were like, bar buddies or anything like that.
Well, you were closer with him than I was, and I just want to be clear about that, because I know that people go, "Do you think this is what Charlie would have wanted?" Well, I don't know. He's dead.
Right.
I don't know. He's dead. He can't speak, and he's dead because he sat down at a table and allowed anyone who would speak or listen to have a conversation. And very few people know what it's like to be in that chair. I do. I know what it feels like. I know when you're surrounded. I know the kind of balls it took for Charlie Kirk to do. He is dead. And so when people say tone down the temperature, well, you know what? Let's host a vigil. Well, I can't do that. You get a text. You know what? Let's host an event. Can't do that. Let's do a tour. Can't do that. So what they really mean is silence.
Yep.
Or do you really? Or how much do you want your kids to have a father? It is terrorism. One thing I would say, and I'm not saying this to disagree with you. I don't know if Charlie Kirk did know or didn't think it was possible. Dear God, I hope that he knew it was possible, because I very much did. I mean, we had some, which I'll talk about probably more off air, some serious close calls where every time I've been out in public, I've known that it's a very serious possibility. And I know that he knew risk. So whether he thought he would pay with his life to a terrorist, I don't know. But I know he went out there and did it anyway, assuming some risk. And the left doesn't do that. They don't have to. It only comes from the left.
I agree with you on that. And what I mean to say is we all think it's possible. But my point is, if Charlie Kirk knew at that moment walking out meant there was a guy waiting to kill him, he wouldn't have done it. No one is going to walk into death intentionally for no reason. We all assumed the risk. That's why Charlie had security, because, of course, it's a possibility. What's scary now is when run-of-the-mill default libs, we call them, are posting justification, lying about Charlie Kirk, or saying other people deserve it too. I'm sitting here looking at these posts from people that I've known my whole life, and I messaged one friend saying, "You realize that the guy was a friend of mine, that for 3 years we would go out and visit. We would do the show with him, and he would sit with us. He's been on the show several times. No response. They've cut me off, and that to see other people, my whole feed is filled with every liberal being like, other people deserve what's coming, and that's when I realized The fear we have now and the increase in death threats and the increase in security, a line has been crossed, and it didn't. You know, I was asked the other night, one of our members in the call-in show, do you think this will wake the left up and they'll calm down? We've already seen the inverse. It's a green light for them.
Yes, let me tell you, there would have been one acceptable response from the left, and only one. Would have been, okay, all right, guys, this one's on us. We called you fascists, we called you Nazis, and we know, right? You don't deal with fascists at the ballot box. You can't. So we box people into violence. Hey, guys, this one's on us. We presented every single view from those on the right as violence. If they were pro-life, it was violence against women. If they were pro-Second Amendment, it was violence because how many lives do you want to save, right? Gun violence. If it was pro-First Amendment, they were inciting violence. If they were anti-Black Lives Matter, they were pro-police killing black violence. And at the end of this, if they're silent, it's also violence. So when every single one of our positions has been presented as violence that cannot be dealt with democratically, it is a logical conclusion from the mentally ill that we are living, and that is a useful tool to the left. And I remember, too, I mean, when you were coming in, I don't want to mislabel you, but more moderate than me, I think that's fair to say. We're having conversations saying, man, these guys will kill you. Yeah. You're not their friend anymore. I don't think you understand because I was raised in it. I've known two conservatives my entire life from my childhood, socialist province. One of them still works for me right now. I then spent time in comedy clubs in Hollywood. I was only surrounded by the left. As a matter of fact, it took me a while to kind of understand the Fox News audience. I was there for 4 years. I was a conservative. I didn't run in those circles. I know how the left operates. That would have been the only acceptable response. Instead, they said, hey, both sides. That's verifiably untrue. Yep. They said, actually, this shooter is a Trump supporter. Remember, we had that DOJ leak. People said I lied. People said I was lying. Right? They said the same thing about the Nashville Manifesto, by the way. It was a lie until it was a liability. And then the mayor, the police, and the FBI said they would investigate and sue me. By the way, wow. That's one of the few instances of political violence on the left. And Cato put a note saying, just note, we did include Covenant High School, even though it's considered borderline because the PD said it's not ideologically motivated. We were right. And one thing, just one thing. When we released well, 2 points here. The reason we got that leak from an inside source, right? Whenever it was, within 24 hours of the shooting, it's because someone at that department was concerned that it would be buried because he had seen things like this buried before. Here's the most important part. Bullet engravings, Antifa sayings, trans furry stuff. The shooter's still out there. And so's Charlie Kirk's family. So's the Kirk family. So are you. So are my entire team. And we're on the menu. And the left was more concerned with tarring and feathering my name, your name, than keeping people safe. They lied, and then they tried to blame it on the people who are the victim of the violence. They'll never get this right. Ever. Ever. We are not going to hold hands. We are not. I am not going to unify with the left or the spineless right. I do not count them amongst us anymore, and I think we need a change in approach. I speak for myself.
So there's the obvious question of where that path leads us, and I'm gonna say it like this because everybody who watches me knows that we talk about civil war periodically, but more frequently than others. I certainly get the memes, but we don't talk about it that much, but it does come up quite a bit. Yeah, and I'm taking credit for my predictions being correct in many ways, though we haven't reached the full fruition. And the example that I've given is in September of 2020, I said on this show and on Timcast IRL that if Trump loses in November, his supporters, they're going to go to D.C., they're going to storm into the White House. They will not accept this defeat. November came and went. I was called paranoid, crazy, rage baiter, pessimist, black-pilled by some on the right. All of the left, they mocked me. January 6th happened, and all of a sudden the liberals' narrative changed. It wasn't that I was crazy for suggesting it, even though it wasn't the White House and it wasn't in November. They said Tim Pool had foreknowledge of January 6th, and that statement proved it. And so what I have described, last year, during the election, before the election, I said, I was debating Sam Cedar. I said, do you think Trump's going to use the military for immigration enforcement? And he goes, yes. And I said, and are you going to let him? And his response was wishy-washy, kind of like, well, liberals might actually do it, but maybe not. And I said, my fear is that the president is going to call the National Guard as it pertains to immigration enforcement. There will be a confrontation between state leadership as to who controls the National Guard. It'll go to the courts, and there will be a fight over who's actually in charge, and this will create a rift. Then escalation. We are in this period now. They have assassinated Charlie Kirk. The escalation keeps happening. And everything that I've stated in some way, it's been relatively vague, but has been manifesting. And that terrifies me. So when we say now, it's not about whether we will or won't unify. The reality is you can't unify. There is no reality where I've already tried talking to some of my friends saying, hey, please don't say this and justify this. They're saying they want to kill me. And they're like, we don't care. They're cut off. Like, they're not responding to me anymore. They're posting there's one individual, some people in Hollywood that I know, actors and actresses, who have posted Charlie deserved it, here's why. And then they've posted fake quotes about it.
Right.
The mainstream liberals are justifying the death. Jimmy Kimmel did it. The rhetoric is not toning down. And there are two distinct moral worldviews right now. And you cannot convince a liberal that what they have said about Charlie is a lie. They don't care. So the future seems kind of obvious. 1 + 1 = 2. I'm not sure if you agree or not.
I don't know. I'll tell you this. It's not what I'm advocating. What I'm advocating, hey, is the intermediate step, which is they show up and they do what they've done. They behave the way that they have. You could pay with your life. I want every leftist out there right now to know that this is as close as you ever get to me or my friends as a trophy again. We'll hurt you. We'll kill you if you show up and you're violent and we have to defend ourselves. We haven't. We will use lawful defense where appropriate, and grace has been afforded before. We just showed the clip today. Remember them kicking down the White House? Let me give you not even a hypothetical. Kicking down the White House barricades. Remember they burned down the church across the street?
They set it on fire.
There were people shouting they were going to kill Donald Trump, right? Like Beauty and the Beast. And then they called him Bunker Don. Would anyone be upset if instead of a rubber bullet, one of them caught some real lead? I wouldn't. Because you said you were going to kill the president and you were kicking down barricades.
Injuring police officers.
Rubber bullets. That should stop. That should stop if you're saying you're going to kill the president. If someone is going out saying, hey, I am going to firebomb your car and coming up with a Molotov cocktail, guess what? You deal with it appropriately. So I am advocating right now the same reason that we advocate concealed carry. The left needs to fear ramifications. If they behave like us, the left, in other words, if you come to, whether it's a Change My Mind, a stand-up show, and you behave the way we behave, guess what? You'll be treated the way we are all treated. If you behave the way that conservatives never behave toward the left, which is unlawful, criminal, violent, let's start with this. Let's make it sting. Let's make it hurt. Let's make it known that they don't get off scot-free anymore. And here's the worst part, Tim. They're going to try and equivocate. It only comes from the left. It only comes from the left. I've challenged people, show me one Charlie Kirk on the left, not an elected official. Show me one instance where someone was assassinated as an act of terrorism in front of their family, merely for opinions, and then gleefully celebrated thereafter. You won't find it. They'll try and go to Minnesota. That guy, by the way, wasn't some Trump maniac. He blamed Tim Walz. He was out of his mind. It's the closest thing they can come to, and something Mike Lee said on Twitter. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. It's not even close. And now they come out and say, actually, most of the violence comes from the right wing. I could prove to you that's not true.
It's fake. It's
completely fake.
I pull up the ADL heat map all the time because it says white supremacy, anti-government, and, quote, other are all right-wing. They have 3 categories of right-wing. That way they can make a fake list that blames run-of-the-mill conservatives for what some psychotic sovereign citizen does. So
it's even worse. It's even worse. Can I give you a very specific example? Because I know you'll remember this. I don't know if you can pull up the clip. Okay. And I'll get through the methodology and why it's all corrupted, but this is all you need to know, folks. Remember that man in Portland? His name was Aaron Danielson. He was shot dead point blank by an Antifa member. The guy's name was Michael Reinl, I believe.
Yep.
And he said, we got a Trump supporter. Bang, bang, dead. On camera, killed him. That was not registered as political violence, according to the recent Economist numbers, which, by the way, also have no left-wing political violence the entire summer of 2020. So that's enough. If that is not counted, then all of it is bullshit. Throw it all out. Now, there are other factors that are important. For example, pretty much any white on minority crime is considered to be violence labeled right. Minority versus another minority or minority versus white is not. Any crime against government officials or halls of government is considered right-wing violence, including in some instances where it's members of Antifa committing the crime. But you don't need to know anything else. Trump supporter here, bang, bang, not political violence. Those are the numbers being circulated.
Yeah, I made a graph earlier where I took it's like 13 major cities and then said, break down all the violent crime incidents in 2023, which is usually the more accurate data,
right,
by political party control and preference. And guess what? It's 95% Democrat. So when we're actually talking about the risks of political violence,
yes,
it is not a MAGA Trump supporter going up and shooting people. The best thing they can do is say, like, a white supremacist prison gang got into a fight, and that's right-wing extremism. Yeah, but no one's talking. We're asking the question is, Charlie Kirk, does he have anything to do with white supremacy? No, in fact, he advocated against it. So they lie. However, the assassin of Charlie Kirk's worldview was mainstream Democrat. Gender ideology. That was the principal motivating factor, according to law enforcement, it appears. And that is you take any Democrat who claims to be a moderate, and they will support that ideology. You take a white supremacist murder, and you will find every single Republican 100% condemning it.
Yeah. Well, not to mention that people don't realize this, that neo-Nazis are often still socialists. That's one thing people don't realize. They think they can make all the social programs work if just not for the blacks and browns and Jews. Like, people don't realize they actually supported the socialist part of the Nazi name as well. So anything that is white supremacy, they just label as right-wing. Let me give you some examples of other ones that are not included, by the way. It depends on whether you're using Cato or you're using The Economist. I'll sort of dismiss the NIJ one because it was removed. The left is saying it's removed because it proved their point. But the truth is it was removed because it was commissioned under a Biden administration and clearly was riddled with inaccurate forms of methodology. Not considered either terrorism or political violence, depending on which one we're using. Not a single one of what the crimes committed in George Floyd's name, where you had over 20 killed, over $2 billion in damages within the first few months. Daryl Brooks, Waukesha, killed 6, injured 70, not included. Again, that Portland shooting, none of these are. You have to throw all of it out. It is coming from the left. And here's how you know you can believe your lying eyes and ears. That's the empirical. The anecdotal is they're showing up and spitting at the vigils and pantomiming a man dying in front of his children. It's not just that professors are showing students a snuff film to create a generation of psychopaths, by the way. That's how you desensitize them, right?
Yep.
It's that the professors have lived in an echo chamber for so long, they didn't even see it coming. They didn't even understand that people might go, oh, wait, my teacher said good aim to a man who assassinated a father in front of his children. It didn't even cross their mind. That's how consequence-free their lives have been. And now the left tries to do the jujitsu, gaslighting, cancel culture. No, Jimmy Kimmel deserved to be fired. It is not an example of cancel culture. And I don't give a shit. I don't care anymore. I want to fight. I hate the evil that inspires these people. I don't like them. I have plenty of friends. I could use a few enemies. I want to make examples of anyone out there who wants to make an example of us. And here's the thing. Hey, equal footing. I've said this to the left. You treat our violent guys who show up to your change my minds and prove me wrongs. You treat our guys the same way we treat yours. Bet you know that's not an equitable trade, right? They know exactly why. They know exactly why.
What this is I guess it's kind of scary to say, but the conversation is over. For the past 10 years, we have seen, or longer, we've seen the far left. I mean, I could say since going back to Occupy, the far left has gone out and been violent, and even they use, I would say for a while, I call it blunt terrorism. And that is, when an Antifa guy shows up to a peaceful rally and punches someone in the face, it's not national news. No one cares. But it is terror, and it does make people think twice about doing these events. They've now crossed the line into a direct assassination of a high-profile political figure and celebrated it. I don't know what argument there is to be had when they're lying about Charlie Kirk, justifying his murder, and defending those who would call for mine. And they have the nerve to say, my God, the fascism. Oh, no, Jimmy Kimmel got fired. While they previously celebrated Roseanne and Tucker Carlson, and Charlie Kirk was just killed. They are more upset that their comedian with some of the worst ratings in all of media, Jimmy Kimmel was getting 200,000 in the key demo. And they're saying, this is the worst thing's ever happened to us, while Charlie Kirk, his family is still mourning his assassination. I don't even know how to have a conversation with someone like that to explain to them, we may disagree, but let's live together. They've said no. And I don't know where this goes other than escalation, which worries me.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't worry me because we're in it.
That's true.
in it.
That's true.
And I'd rather know that we're in a fight. And that's why I'm telling people, that's why I'm sounding the alarm, because I know, and you know, because we've been in it, and Charlie knew. And a lot of the public doesn't. They think, gee, golly, it's trolling. And they didn't just answer softly, the left, meaning like, yeah, they kind of tacitly. No, they answered forcefully. Look, let me ask you this. YouGov, bastion of conservatism? Of course not, right? I want you to close your eyes for a second and picture a fascist. Picture a fascist party, a totalitarian, Nazis, or it could be under Stalin, whoever, Pinochet. Let me ask you, are you picturing 77% of them saying that political violence is never acceptable? Because only Republicans answered that in this country to YouGov versus 38% of Democrats. That means significantly more than half of Democrats answered either completely acceptable to somewhat acceptable, or I don't know. Guess what? I don't want to be friends with, I don't know. You're a piece of shit. I'm going to treat you like a piece of shit. You're not my friend, and you killed one of them. Okay? That's where we are. I'm tired of this bullshit. We have been in a fight, and this, gee golly, can't we all get along? No, no, we cannot. These people want you dead, and if they can't take your life, they'll take your name. They tried to take the latter from me. I don't care anymore. I just don't care. It just doesn't matter. We're not going to play the both sides bullshit. And I will tell you this. Yeah, go. Sorry, and I'm not yelling at you.
No. I get it.
Just to be clear, it's just fuckery, if I can say that on your show. I just the fact that we're even having this. No. You guys answered, the left. You guys answered political violence is somewhat acceptable. Okay, great. I am saying that lawful violence in response to what you've stated is completely acceptable. If that makes me an extremist, great.
They have argued they have the right to self-defense because your words are violence. And I think it's fair to say we have a right to defend ourselves when you're assassinating our friends and political leaders, or every degree of violence they've engaged in, from showing up and beating people to throwing firebombs to giving out Molotov cocktails. We can't live this way. And I see all these posts from people on the left being like, don't you care about free speech? And I'm like, bro, you lost the goodwill from us when you took ours several years ago. Your words mean nothing. You've celebrated murder. You've celebrated violence. You've mocked us as we were being attacked. I have no interest in talking to you or even trying to argue at this point. I am just going to mock you for the world you created and try to keep myself, my friends, and my family safe. And I'm going to say this last thing. I don't get threats from groypers. I don't get threats from a far right or pro-Israel or anti-Israel. The Jews, the Germans, none of them are threatening me. It is leftists. Every death threat, every close call, every strange incident that we have to deal with, a man in a dress is a great example. It is always someone on the left doing it to us. So if you are going to justify Charlie's death or dance on his grave, I am never going to defend anything you have to complain about. But I do want to ask you...
Can I say one thing? Yeah. One thing about Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, I really, the comic in me appreciates the art of distillation, because the left is trying to go, see, you're the party of cancel culture. First off, shut the fuck up. Second, let me make this really clear, okay? We've always had the bounds of society where we deemed something unacceptable and you were not to live amongst us because it was such a violation of decorum. Cancel culture is a shifting of the Overton window. It's like someone walking backwards, laying down landmines. Let me put this in two phrases. 1963, JFK is killed. Do you think if that day a professor showed the film to his students and said, yeah, I'm glad that the bits of his brain landed on his bitch's jacket, do you think he would be fired?
Oh, yeah.
Of course. Now, let me ask you, 63, same day. If he said to his classroom, men are biologically different from women, would he be fired? No. There you go. You understand cancel culture. Let's move on. We're adults.
It is getting really, really strange. So I'm just curious. I have to, what I had stated to Variety when they interviewed me on this one is, it's not so much that it's an increase in the threats. Like, it is. It's just making more real what we already knew. I was talking to a veteran who had him on the show on IRL, and he said, when we were in combat in, say, Afghanistan, you feel the threat when you go out there, but after a couple of weeks, you start to become complacent. Maybe you don't look around the corners anymore, and that's when the ID goes off or you get shot at. And I feel like that's what this is really exposed. So my last question is, I'm curious, how has it been for you guys? Have you had any alerts, close calls, and an increase in let's just call it weird instances or threats?
Yes. Are we going? I thought we were going for an hour, right? Or no?
We could, if you want.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine doing it. I didn't want you to think because I know initially you said 30 to an hour. I told him to say I'm good for now, but whatever you want. Obviously, you can boot me. Yeah. Here's the thing too. I went through, some very public legal battles, and I had, I'll use the term, spineless conservatives dox the house where I and my children sleep to Antifa. I think you kind of covered some of this without getting into detail. So that's been ongoing, and your life is forever changed, right? Everything you do always has to be done very prudently, without exception. You have to be perfect, because what the left sees, what the world sees, I should say, is what gets through. Guarantee you, for what you saw happen, the absolute atrocity, tragedy, the cold-blooded assassination as an act of terrorism against Charlie Kirk was one of dozens that got through. And there's a difference between drama. Oh, someone said they want to kill me. Okay, get in line. And real ones, I would say that they're still pretty steady. But again, I'll tell you, this is a personal thing. My lady, my girlfriend for quite a while now, she's a fiery Latina. She, when she met me, I kind of have a reputation of being a hermit, a little bit of a recluse. I'm a homebody, but I was getting a lot of threats at one point. When she met me, I was largely kind of staying at home and being careful. So I would just tell her I had some close calls. On our show, she saw a highlight reel with everything from me getting punched in the face, horse collared, people attempting to firebomb, throwing all this stuff. And she has been, now to the uninitiated, what someone would view as paranoid. Or she said, I didn't know how, I only see the positive interactions. We go somewhere. And I said, yeah, so maybe now you understand why sometimes I'm a little tense. And I hate this, but she's getting a taste of it because I wanted to protect her from it. And you can't. No. That's the real issue, too. That's really tough as a man. It's like you can't protect those around you from these animals. So the closest thing I can think of is a tone shift. I want the left to be scared. I want it to hurt when they try and hurt ours. I'm not even advocating political violence. I'm advocating for the first time conservatives to exercise their right to lawful violence. And we need to see this across the board because the systems,
you're advocating self-defense.
Yeah, but we haven't been doing it.
I know.
That's the thing.
I watched these videos where conservatives get punched in that. When Andy Ngo was being mercilessly beaten, he didn't fight back. He just kept going as they beat him and beat him. The beatings won't stop until you defend yourself, and that is why we are legally allowed to defend ourselves, to stop them from injuring us, from hurting us. And I think the sad reality is conservatives just kept turning the other cheek. Yeah, they didn't want the escalation. And you know what's fascinating too is the really great, the horrifying example is the Proud Boys in New York. When the far left was attacking patrons of this speaking event with Gavin McInnes, Proud Boys came out. Antifa was taunting and throwing things. The Proud Boys engaged them. A fight broke out. I'd call that mutual combat, although to be fair, Antifa went to their event and instigated it. But fine, let's call it mutual. When the police showed up, the Proud Boys, with smiles on their faces, thanked the police and gave all their information over, and Antifa said, F the police, and ran. And then, with the information on the Proud Boys, the city government said, lock them up, and they got 4 years in prison, despite being the ones aggressed upon. Yeah, conservatives have largely been avoiding this because we know that if you try to defend yourself, the law was coming for you. They would lock you up and let Antifa go. Now, Trump is saying Antifa is a terror organization and we're not playing that game anymore, and they're crying about it.
Absolutely. And let me send this message to everyone out there. Look, Kyle Rittenhouse shouldn't have been treated with anything other than good shooting and a pat in the back from the judge. The guy had already shot at him and was aiming a gun at him, and he shot his bicep in a John Wick move. Okay, this is what you're talking about, the Proud Boys right there. Exactly. These people, Daniel Penny, they shouldn't be alone. And like you said, the law will be against you. But hey, to everyone listening right now, again, lawfully defending yourself, understand this. They can't catch you all. They can't arrest you all. They can't prosecute you all because people have woken up right now. They know the enemy that we are facing. It is within. And if they see the selective prosecution, people are going to know. That's what the left has used, right? They falsely claim victim. Conservatives have actually been the victim of institutionalized discrimination. Let me give you an example, and I can't take credit for this. The investigative unit here, they're 7-0. The best that's ever done it, the most consequential that's ever done it. I can't even tell you their names because I'm not allowed to. With the Covenant School shooting, right? What happened is we got that manifest, and now it's included in the Cato stats. It would not have been. Think about that for a second. Yep. We got it. They accused us of lying. They said this isn't legitimate. Then they said it's legitimate, but it'll hurt the family. And they still maintained there was no ideological motivation. They still protested to Cato. What about the ones that we don't catch? Think about that. The numbers are already. What about the ones that we don't catch?
Why is Cato lying?
What's that?
Why is Cato lying?
Well, Cato said they included it. They said, we included it, but it's Audrey Hale Covenant is borderline because I believe they said the police claim that it's not. So we opted to include it, but just know. Well, what about that is borderline? And what about a man being shot point blank because how do I know he was murdered? Because we saw him murdered. How do I know he was murdered because he was a Trump supporter? Because the guy who murdered him said it's because he's a Trump supporter, and it's not political violence. It's like a nightmare where you're trying to scream and no one can hear you. So stop screaming and start protecting yourself.
I think we should include all, in Chicago, you've got a lot of violent crime among the young black men. They're the majority of the murders. That's all left as far as I'm concerned. So I'm gonna play the same game they do. I'm gonna make an institution, which is a meaningless term. I'm gonna create a nonprofit. I'm gonna call it an institution. And then I'm gonna get some doctors who have like the stupidest doctorate degree so I can have Dr. Whoever. Then we're going to take every gang shooting and say, because liberals release them from prison, this is leftist violence because it's in line with their worldview. And then take a look at what those charts are going to show. It's going to, there's going to be such a small sliver of right wing, we may as well not even include it. In fact, we won't. We'll say the right was so low compared to leftist violence that it was a rounding error we decided not to include.
Yeah. You know what? I think that's completely fair. I can tell you exactly why. Let me give you, and I have this written down here. Billy Davis, according to these charts that are circulating right now, this is a white woman who stabbed an Asian woman on a bus in 2024, Bloomington, Indiana. Okay. It was listed on the database there. The TPP database is what they use. It was listed as right identity focus because she was white. Let's compare that to Brandon Elliott, a black man brutally assaulted an Asian woman in New York City, 2021, I believe, was convicted of a hate crime. And it wasn't listed on the TPP database at all. Now, here's the other thing. Because of our justice bureaus, because they've stopped recording interracial crime statistics, right? They changed that, I believe it was in 2016, where it's kind of murky. You have to use isolated studies. Keep in mind that data shows 85% of all assault crimes in the San Francisco Bay Area were black on Asian. 85% of all assault. Now, it's a small sample size because we can't get it from the DOJ.
Just call it leftist.
We can't get it from the FBI.
Don't just call it leftist.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because look, the left talks about white supremacy and white privilege, and so the data shows they have white liberals have an outgroup preference. So if then the violence is targeting non-black people, then I think our institution can just refer to that as leftist, and we'll make those charts, right? Now, the reality is
good enough for me.
But we've been honest the whole time, and this doesn't work on the right. You can't make fake stats to trick the right. They'll just get mad at you for doing it. But liberals fall for it every time when the left does it.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. And that's also why it's hard sometimes to get the right to sort of coalesce, around each other, because they just have a naturally rebellious streak. Just understand the enemy that it is we're facing. They are violent. They want you dead. This is not a difference of opinion on marginal tax rates. And here's the thing. Charlie Kirk sat down and had conversations with people, and they have conceded the war of ideas, the left, because they can't win. So they took his life. They took his life anyway. Now, let me ask you this. Anyone watching, anyone listening, what views do you hold that you think might be to the right of Charlie Kirk? If you vote Republican, there's a good chance a few of them. What do you think they'd do to you if given the chance?
How about this? They say Charlie Kirk is far right. I argue he's a moderate. You know why? Because publicly, privately, overtly, he said gay people should be welcome in their movement. And he's got viral videos where a young gay conservative is talking to him on the microphone, and Charlie says, you don't need to describe yourself as gay. That's not who you are. You're a conservative. I hope that you come to Christ. That's what Charlie Kirk said to him. Imagine 15 years ago that the Republican Party was not there. They're claiming Charlie Kirk is far right. I argue that Charlie Kirk was moderate. And so what does that mean for everybody who actually is staunchly conservative?
No, you're exactly right. And I don't think it was necessarily moderate in belief. I think it was moderate in approach. Sure. And so was I for a long time. I really was. I really wanted to show that we could have dialogues. The problem is the left killed people anyway, so I don't care anymore. If they want to know why, they've made me this way. Ruthless, merciless, indifferent, lawful violence. That is what I'm advocating. I make no apologies for it. Anyone who has a problem with it, I'll make the case. And this reaction saying actually more violence comes from the right, It tells you the left is incapable of taking accountability, and they are going to continue down this path. More people are going to die unless something changes from our side. It's that simple.
The worst thing I think about it is, Mehdi Hasan is a good example. He published a list of out-of-context quotes, as have many of these liberals, because this is the second degree of how they try to defend and justify the murder. Yeah. What they're doing now is, here's what I think happened. I think when Charlie first was assassinated, liberals were all cheering and dancing. There was one viral video from some random woman. She's not anyone special. And she said, she was laughing and said, the best thing about it is that Charlie was not well known enough to be a martyr. That's what they thought. And then the Yankees, the Cowboys, all these football teams held a moment of silence for Charlie. In Vegas, on the marquee, they were putting up in memory of Charlie Kirk. The New York Times put it on their menu bar at the top of their website, Charlie Kirk. And I think then liberals realized, oops, this guy was actually extremely popular among regular people for trying to just have a conversation. It was entertaining. It was fun. He made it fun to have these conversations. So they shifted their tactics. Liberals were now feeling scared. Are people now going to be mad at us for cheering for this? Don't worry, says Mehdi Hasan and Occupy Democrats. It was wrong to kill him, but look how evil he was. And then the liberals get to go, well, he was evil, I guess. But those quotes were all lies. The most egregious of which is there's memes going on all over Facebook where it says black women in brackets, and then it says ... don't have the brain processing power to be in these positions.
It was about Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who said, I'm a DEI hire.
He never said that. Charlie Kirk never said black women. He said these women who have stated publicly they were hired under DEI didn't have the processing power, the brain processing power, to hold these jobs. He was referring to specific individuals. Not whole groups of people, but they lie because they need you. What they want is they want liberals to publicly say, sure, the assassination was wrong, but privately think it was okay.
Well, here, let me. Here's the thing: they killed Charlie Kirk, who was talking specifically about those women who said they were DEI hires, right? Black women. How about now you deal with the people you've turned into this? Those dumb bitches who happen to be black, Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Hey, those dumb bitches who happen to be black and tell you they got their job because they're black. I'm just saying dumb bitches. They're saying they got their job because they're black. You draw your own conclusions. I don't care anymore. I don't. And you know what else? When I talk with black people, and I'm a guy, again, after, we changed, one of the things we changed my mind to talking with people because quite literally it's harder to set up a shot. So I can walk with people and just talk with people. And I had to do it out of necessity. Then we did black and white and the gray issues where I go into a barbershop. I talk. I'm surrounded by black men. They are not offended at all. Yeah. When I go, hey, you know what? Do you understand why we get concerned when we find ourselves at the intersect of ML King Jr. Boulevard and Malcolm X? They go, yeah, we are too. Yeah. It's the left who wants to perpetuate this offense because that's their currency. It's evil. It's evil. Yeah, he didn't say it, but they're still doing it, right?
Did you know, Stephen, that Charlie Kirk said, and I quote, black children are a gift from God. Now, that doesn't sound like a white supremacist to me, but let me caveat that. No. What actually happened was that Charlie Kirk was at one of his events, and a black woman walked up with her young child, who was about a year old, and she was asking Charlie a question about faith and made a mention of having a child. Charlie smiled and said, you just had a kid recently? And she said, yes. And he goes, that child is a gift from God. Now, here's the thing. What they do is they apply false context. Did Charlie say all black children in this context are a gift from God? No, he was referring to a single child. The reality is on the right, if I were to make that fake quote, conservatives would be like, hey, he didn't say that. He was referring to, because we want the truth. We want to know what he was actually conveying. But we know he literally does believe that any child of any background is a gift from God and children are fantastic. Yeah. Not only do we not make fake quotes to lie and smear people, we can't because people will get mad. Every day I put up a video on YouTube. I try to make sure the title is as accurate, conveying my opinion without distorting it as possible. And I still have people on the right saying, rage bait, like this, we put up a title and like yesterday with Jimmy Kimmel getting fired. And as soon as it goes live, all the comments, there's like 3 or 4 comments saying, this better not be clickbait. This better be real. As if I'm lying when I say Jimmy Kimmel was fired because they won't tolerate lies. The left, they revel in it.
Yeah, well, that's the one thing they do agree upon. Like, they agree upon lying. Like, this is the method, this is the battle plan. Whereas conservatives, we can disagree about a whole lot. Like, for example, I mean, I may disagree with Charlie Kirk's statement on that, because the truth is, it's a 50-50 shot. You don't know if it's a good baby or not. Good baby, Hitler baby. You could have made the world a worse place for having given birth. Now, see, that's a joke. We can do that. The left would take that out of context. I'm going to treat people like they're
going to do it.
You got to treat people like they're adults. Hey, you guys know what I'm saying, right? You guys know cancel culture, right? Difference between brain bits and saying good shot and, hey, men and women are a thing. One's something that is deplorable, to use their term. One is something that's an ever-changing rule set. Hey, we know the difference between lawful defensive violence that we've sort of abandoned and we've offered grace instead versus civil war. People do. The left wants to take it out of... I went through this with X this week where it doesn't matter. Did you want to talk about our bingo card if a head of French state was going to be showing her snatch in court because of Candace Owens?
What? No, but it is ridiculous. But what I do want to say is, on the issue of lawful violence, the idea of self-defense, that we will not tolerate this anymore, there is a clear and a distinct bit of information the left needs to understand. Mm-hmm. For the longest time, we did not think you were actually going to kill us. We thought it was possible. And we thought that when you showed up with rocks or Molotovs, for the most part, the violence was bad, but we try to avoid the fights, right? Mm-hmm. They say in the fight, any fight you've avoided is a fight you've won. The problem now is they've actually killed Charlie Kirk. And now I have extreme fear of death from the left, not just because of what I witnessed, but because they are posting online a list of names with you and me on them saying we should be next and saying go kill them. I can only make one assumption, and I have the legal right to do so. If I fear for my life, I will use whatever power I have to defend myself. If you are going to inflict great bodily harm or death upon me or the people around me, I have a legal right to self-defense. And they have made sure with this killing that we all feel that any step they make towards us with violence is a risk of death. And now I don't want anyone to die. I don't want anyone to get hurt. I oppose the death penalty. I want people to live peacefully and comfortably, but I am not going to sit back and let you just shoot me or kill me. So my eyes, I am staying vigilant. I am getting my security guards, and I'll keep it real simple. You know what? I'm going to say this, Stephen. I will never even defend myself. I want you to hear that. You know why? My armed guards with AR-15s will do it for me, who are around me and watching to make sure if you try to step forward and risk the life of me and my family, they will use all legal means to stop the threat before you can hurt other people.
Yeah, well, I understand that. For example, when I did, because a lot of the Change My Minds weren't even on campus; they were just in public spaces. It's the one time I didn't carry. My security guards were there for the left. Because what do you think I do to you? What do you think I do to these people if they're not there? If I'm sitting with my family, you've met me. Look, it's a hobby. Some people, they dabble in watercolors, oils. Mine is fighting. That's been a hobby of mine for a long time. They're there to protect them, because if you steal a homeless man's lunchbox and launch it at my face while claiming you're a woman in a Letterman's jacket, it's an actual video, you can go watch it, I would have beaten your ass. But now, afforded no grace. I agree with you, and I think it's a very noble thought. I disagree with one thing. I don't want everyone to live in peace and comfort unless they deserve it, unless they've earned it. And in this country, for me now, it's you need to earn it. I want them to live in fear and discomfort if they are willing to commit acts of violence because of political differences. I don't want them to have peace. I don't. I really don't.
I appreciate you going longer. This has been a lot of fun. So I'll say one last thing. I've got advice for these leftists, for these liberals, and I hope they take it. Hear me. I want you to go to Walmart, buy a nice little cheap folding table and some big white poster board and write on it, Trump is a fascist, change my mind, and go sit down at a university and tape it there and have a peaceful conversation with that. That'll show those conservatives, challenge them to a debate and their ideas, change their minds, and you will win the political debate. But for the most part, they have tried wearing masks, beating people, threatening people. You know what? That doesn't fly. Try the change my mind approach, and I, with a smile on my face, will say, appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it. And you know what? I would tell them, bring security with you, but don't bring security to be prudent, but you won't need it, leftists, because you never do. Remember, I've lived amongst them too. I've also gone and cared with the left for going back to 2012, you might have even run into me in Occupy Wall Street with a hammer and sickle as a communist. And I know, I've lived among them. Like, I have been among them my whole life. And here's the one difference. I agree with you on 99% of what you said. And this is me taking ownership. I always thought it was a matter of time before it came to this and one got through. I knew it was not only a possibility, an inevitability, and I screwed up by not making it as clear as possible. I could have sounded the alarm. I told people it was dangerous. I told people that the left obviously they're uncaring, they're unempathetic. I didn't shout it enough, and I'm trying to make those wrongs right. Everyone out there, know what you are in for. Understand the risks. I don't want to see any more bodies stacked.
We didn't believe
that there will be.
We knew it was bad, but we didn't want to believe it would get to this point, even though we kind of knew. But Stephen, it's been awesome having you. I really do appreciate you joining me. Where can people find you if they don't already know?
Well, again, because I'm persona non grata at YouTube, but Rumble live stream every day, and you're on that lineup too, where each show rolls in the next 11 a.m. Eastern. Every day of the week, and we're still number one there in our time slot, and it's going on a long time. By the way, Rumble being more downloaded than YouTube in the App Store now. Woo. That's a real change. Yeah, I really want to see YouTube. I mean, figuratively, by the way, just to be clear, because of all this talk of violence, I want to see YouTube die as a platform. But first, I want to see it suffer.
Right on, man. Well, I appreciate it, man, and I'll talk to you next time.
Appreciate it. Stay safe, brother.
Take care.